Canada's Auditor General says the federal government is falling short in a number of areas, but the most costly miss of them all, the Liberals' fighter jet plan. In the early 80s, Canada bought 138 CF-18 Hornets. There are now 76 of them left, which means, according to the Liberal government, they're not only aging, but there aren't enough of them to meet commitments to defend North America through NATO and NORAD.
The fighters our Air Force currently flies are 35 years old right now. Because they were not replaced, we now have a capability gap.
To bridge that so-called gap, the government is buying 25 used F-18 jets from Australia and holding a $19 billion competition to build Canada's new fleet. But those won't be flying until 2032, so the aging and used CF-18s will fly in the meantime. The problem? The AG says there aren't enough pilots to fly them and not enough technicians to fix them, which means the very reason for the Liberals' fighter jet plan to meet that capability gap, well, the AG says it won't happen. Without combat upgrades, the CF-18 will be less effective against adversaries in domestic and international operations, which would limit Canada's contribution to NORAD and NATO. So, will the government change course following this report? Harjit Sajjan is the Minister of National Defence. Hi, Minister Sajjan. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you again.
Thanks for coming back here. Minister, why is the Canadian government buying used fighter jets from Australia when, as the AG points out, we don't even have the resources to fly the current ones?
Well, I think we should go back to where, when we formed government, when we did the analysis of the problem that we actually had. First of all, is our current fighters should have been replaced 10 years ago. We had to figure out how many fighter aircraft we actually needed to replace when we were going to launch the full competition. So when we did the analysis, based on the commitments to NATO and NORAD, the number that the Conservative government had left of 65 aircraft, which, by the way, they actually didn't leave enough money for the 65. 65 wasn't going to be enough to meet our obligations. So hence why we actually increased to 88. Early on in 2016, while we were doing the analysis, we already knew we had a challenge with pilots. So we started recruiting early on. So when we spoke with General Vance about this, and then he gave direction to start recruiting pilots early. But let's not forget,
you still have a problem though 2 years later.
Absolutely, and so not only it's an issue for the pilots, we were increasing the number of aircraft. So we identified the problem. So part of it is about recruiting pilots. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect is keeping them. Why are they leaving? So when we looked at that, we had to make sure that are we doing enough to keep them in. So that's why there's a lot of focus also in looking after our members and their families. Tax-free, but for giving an example, one important aspect is when you're constantly deploying, it's a challenge on the families. So the tax-free for all international operations is an important aspect of that. So there are a lot of programs and benefits that we're looking at to making sure that pilots, that once they're recruited, that they actually stay.
But what the AG pointed out was that you were made aware, your government was made aware in 2016, prior to your announcement of, for example, at the time, buying the Super Hornets, that you are intending to buy the Super Hornets, that there was a shortage of pilots and technicians. What have you done in the last 2 years to solve that problem? Because the AG says you have not solved it.
No, we put a priority on the recruitment. So as you know,
how many new pilots have you recruited?
Well, first of all, it's not just about how many pilots we recruited, it's how many pilots we need. So we're going to be, in the defense policy, looked at how many pilots are going to be needed. Put a priority on the recruitment of pilots, because at the same time, we need to recruit for the Canadian Armed Forces. So there's always a balance between how many people you're going to recruit. So that has been done, and our people are working diligently to do this. So
you have a plan?
Yes, absolutely.
And when was that plan? When did it begin?
So first of all, was giving direction to start recruiting more pilots. Even when we were doing the analysis, we just knew we were going to need more pilots. So that started back in 2016. The other aspect was we had to deal with the issue of retention. So looking after them and their families was also equally important. So for example, one aspect was the international operations, how they're going to be tax-free. That also makes it easier on families. We also had to look at some of the other challenges when families move from province to province. It is a challenge. So we're looking at making life easier for our members.
You are currently, you did in 2016. I just want to be sure of the timeline here, because the AG is, just to be fair, the AG is saying In 2016, you knew this was a problem. You still went ahead and you pursued your plans for more fighter jets, be they the Super Hornets, be they an open competition, be they now the interim use of the old Australian ones. You still went ahead and did that even though you knew there was a problem. You're saying that in 2016 you acknowledged that and you already started a program to deal with it?
So when we identify we needed more pilots, at the end of the day, there are commitments, our NORAD and NATO commitments that we have. We had to analyze how many aircraft are actually needed.
Yeah, but if you can't fly the aircraft, what's the point?
No, but if we don't have the aircraft, how can we recruit the pilots? So this is the chicken and egg thing as well.
But that's not fair because the pilots you're already having a problem recruiting them for the number of jets that you have, right? It's not just because you said there's 88 more jets that we need. We now need more pilots. You already needed more pilots.
Actually, there's even more complexity to that. It's, for example, we have right now 76 jets, right? From that, not all of them are operational at one time, right? We had enough aircraft based on the number of pilots that we had, but based on the increase that we're going to make, right? That we would not have enough more. Plus, at the same time, we actually saw pilots leaving because the civilian airline industry was hiring more. So we knew that we needed to start recruiting more. At that time, we were going through our defense policy review, doing a very thorough analysis. During that time, we wanted to address the issue of retention because the Auditor General also brought up the issue on the previous reports.
Did you address it? Has there been a difference?
So that's exactly what we're focusing on now.
But that doesn't answer the question. Has there been a difference?
We need some little bit more time to actually do the quantitative aspect of it. But
so you don't know.
So based on, hold on a second, I ask you, one aspect, well, we can share the focus on looking after people and the families, we're seeing a direct difference to it. When I get to travel across Canada, the focus upon putting on their families, knowing that the government actually cares about their family as well, makes it easier. Because if you look at the time when people start leaving the military, it's usually at a time when their families has bigger challenges in terms of having to move constantly. So we're looking at addressing the benefits, making it easier for people to move, and at the same time, making the benefits that's actually going to impact the families. That's where the tax-free benefit has a significant impact on families.
Okay, I want to point out with this some numbers that the AG provided. Between April of 2016 and March of 2018, the Air Force lost 40 trained fighter pilots and produced only 30 new ones. Since then, another 17 have left or said that they plan to leave. So once again, if you started these efforts back in 2016, what tangible difference have they made?
So these efforts are going to take some time for it to have an impact. A lot of the issues that we have.
Isn't it fair of Canadians to ask, why are you spending all this money on new fighter jets when we don't know if they can be staffed? When will we know that they can be staffed?
Because one thing we do know, the Canadian Armed Forces, when you make it more attractive to join, when you put an effort actually on recruitment, when you actually put the resources in place, right, people do want to join. But we have to, the question is not about how many people are going to join. We need to ask the question is, why are people leaving? That's something that the benefits that we're putting into place. Yes, we're going to have to take some time to do the.
But you just told me that you've been putting them into place for 2 years.
We have started recruiting. We put the priority on recruiting very early on. And now, and we're going to keep.
What has the benefit of that been? What is the difference? Can you tell me, we have been able to retain X number more pilots. We will have enough pilots by the time these jets are here. What kind of.
So based on the analysis that we have done, yes, we will have enough pilots as the planes only arrive. But let's not forget, we're going to be increasing. We can't put a date onto this. If I had a crystal ball, life would be so much easier. But the most important thing is we're looking at every aspect of this. The biggest one here is. You go back to 2016 when we just when we took over in October 2015. We were dealing with a military that was underinvested. We were looking at a place where people weren't well supported, and we had to go through not only to realize we don't have enough aircraft. We then had to look at the pilot shortage, and we started talking about a pilot shortage when everybody was talking about aircraft. But let's not talk as we talk about pilot shortage. Technicians are also just as important.
Yes,
so
22% of technician positions in CF-18 squadrons are empty in the last fiscal year or filled by inexperienced
So that's why we identified those key positions that are needed, not only the ones that we're losing, but the ones that are going to be needed for the growth of the Air Force and the growth of other services as well.
But with respect, you can't tell me when they're going to be filled. You have no, you can't even present evidence that your efforts have worked so far.
Well, the recruiting process that we have put into place, first thing is putting a priority on the recruitment. Right? Back then, there wasn't even a plan to be able to say who needs to be recruited. Right when the direction was given, We knew that the priority was putting on to the Air Force because we knew that we were going to be having an issue with retaining pilots, but also we were going to increase the number of aircraft. We need to always reach for the goal of our commitments. Most important aspect of this is our NORAD and NATO commitments that we have. We need to meet them, right? Given what's happening around the world. Well, the thing is, we're going to be working very hard to making sure that we are, but it starts with living up to our obligations. Then we have to build towards that. And so it's not about in terms of the date of when we're going to meet them. We do have a plan in place that with the dates that are set out for the number of aircraft that we want. The goal is to making sure all the aircraft that come in, we actually have the pilots and the technicians. And as we go through this, we're going to continue to do the analysis of making sure that we're able to retain these people. Because at the same time, the civilian airline companies are recruiting more. We just need to make sure that, one, when the future fighter comes in, it's going to be the aircraft that people want to fly. But one aspect that people haven't really seen is, and I got to talk to the pilots as I go to different parts of the world with them and across Canada, they also want to feel that they're actually making a contribution. I just came back from Romania and witnessing what our pilots are doing. Also, we had our F-18s as part of Operation Trident Juncture. We are doing things around the world, and that's one thing that our pilots really enjoy as well.
Okay, I have to leave it there. Thank you, Minister Sajjan. Okay. Appreciate your time.
Great, thank you.